That's the notification come up, so we'll just get cracking on if that's okay. Yeah, thank you very much for attending the Children Learning Committee on the 16th of February 2021. Can I just start off with a couple of housekeeping rules? If we could just keep the microphones off unless you're speaking, that would be appreciated so there's no feedback. And we'll start off on the agenda item 1, apologies, substitutions, please.
We have an apology from Councillor Stewart, convener, with Councillor Nicholl substituting, and an apology from Ms Leslie.
Thank you. Declarations of interest? I don't see any hands, so that's fine. Okay, we'll carry on. Okay, minutes of previous meeting. I'm not going to go through all the minutes on it. I would just like to ask if they're agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Yeah, fine. Okay, agenda item number 4, which is an information report. There are 2 schedules for the period 22nd of December to February 2021. Info schedule report 1 is the intro of the secure base model in care, which has been written by Catherine Lindsay. Catherine, do you want to introduce that info report?
Yes, thank you very much, convener. So this report is in essence outlining a practice model that has been implemented across our carer support service and our residential provision. And it's really for members' information in relation to the approach that we're taking to try and improve the consistency of our parenting approach. So you'll see there we've invested in some support and training for key members of staff who will then continue to cascade and roll this model out across all our provision. So what we're aiming for really is to continue to work on and to build the quality of the care and the placements that we provide across Angus for children and young people who can't be at home for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Can we start off with some questions? Is that Councillor Speed?
Yeah, thanks, convener. It's not a question, it's more just a comment and a supportive word with regards to the report.
Okay. Yeah, just carry on. There's no other hands up, so carry on.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, convener. Just to really further touch on what Catherine has outlined, I think it's absolutely paramount that all our children and families who are supported by our social work teams experience the very best care and support to help them in their journey and to reach the good outcomes that we want them to achieve. Positive relationships and attachments are key, and the delivery of this secure model of care is fundamental in helping us to achieve the pledges set out within the promise and uphold the rights of all our children and young people within Angus. So I thank Catherine for bringing this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, Catherine. I think this is a really valuable report and I appreciate it coming forward. I wonder if you could talk us through perhaps a bit of an idea around the measurable outcomes that you'd be looking to see us deliver on by introducing this model, please. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Sorry, I'm having an awful lot of problem with my audio today for some reason. So yes, thank you for that that question. And I guess the simple answer is that it's very challenging to have a definitive kind of outcome measure because positive outcomes for young people in our placements are, you know, multi-layered and they're very difficult to attribute to one particular strand of our investment and activity. But the kinds of things that we would be hoping that this will support in terms of an outcome would be, for example, a reduction in the number of placement changes that young people experience, because the more stable their existing placement, the less risk there will be of that placement then breaking down, and the more likely it is that it will meet their immediate needs for a longer period of time. So certainly stability of placements would be one thing that we would be looking over a course of time to see evidence of some change there. The other kind of avenue, I guess, is for those young people who do have to change placements for different reasons, that they are reporting to us more of a consistency between different settings of the kind of parenting that they experience. And the measures for that will be much, much harder to actually demonstrate, because we're probably only looking at a handful of cases, and individuals will experience that very differently. And finally, over a much longer period of time, what we would like to do is be able to demonstrate that this in some way contributes to overall improvement in attainment. For example, attendance at school, engagement in other activities, not necessarily always exam kind of results and output, but ideally that as well for our young people who experience prolonged periods in care.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we'll just move on to Schedule 2 of that same report. It's the renaming of the Through Care Aftercare team to Horizon. Again, it's Catherine Lindsay. Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener. Just briefly, I was really pleased to see the whole systems approach that's been taken here, and it was particularly nice to see the involvement of the young people in choosing the new name. So thanks for the report, Catherine.
Okay, any other comments? No. Okay, we can move on to agenda item 5, which is the report, Remote Learning Guidance, January 2021. Report's been compiled by Kelly McIntosh. And there are 4 recommendations. But before we go through the recommendations, do we have any questions? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Yeah, I was interested to see the portal for parents and carers, and I wondered how well used it's being at the moment, and what feedback there might have been from the families that have used it and perhaps benefited from it.
Okay, is Kelly McIntosh on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Bell, thank you for your question. When the portal was first put in place, and we obviously have a counter on the portal, it was up in the many tens of thousands very quickly. With regards to feedback, we have had positive comments. Our comms team are at the moment collecting some positive comments from parents and staff about remote learning in general. We have had positive comments. I think it's worth saying, and there may be questions about this too, that the response to the learning portal, as well as the response to the remote learning offer, will be part of a much wider suite of self-evaluation activity that we are undertaking, and that will be subject of a report in a couple of months' time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know which one was up first. Is it Councillor Devine or Councillor Whiteside? Happy to take. Sorry.
Whiteside.
Councillor Whiteside then. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener. Just quickly, I was really pleased to see how many digital devices you've been able to provide with the assistance of the funding you've received. I see there's another 850 on order. Do you feel confident that anybody who needs a digital device has now got one, really? And also, I don't know if it's appropriate at this time yet to ask, but with the gradual return to schools, are there any implications about the social distancing that will be required on school transport, or is it too early to plan that at this stage? Thanks.
Thank you for your questions. With regards to the digital devices, we went out to head teachers again once we realised that only a few children would be able to attend school in person in January. So the new order that's been made is in response to the ask from our head teachers. I think we will be able to continue to respond if more families come forward. We're also utilising corporate devices that have been repurposed. So we're being given, I think, in the region of about 200 of those. Beth will correct me if that's wrong. And with regards physical distancing, I'm checking my iPad when I'm in this meeting because the new safety guidance hasn't yet been published. We did think it would be published on Friday and then yesterday and still not today. And I am aware that the First Minister will be speaking in about 5 minutes' time. So, but there was guidance published on Friday from an advisory subgroup that suggested 2 metre physical distancing and physical distancing on transport for some pupils in the senior phase. So we're just waiting on confirmation of that. I guess to alleviate any fears. If we were back to a full-time return, that would be very difficult. But the numbers that we're expecting in from the senior phase within the next couple of weeks are small, and they're based on essential learning that is required to enable them to continue in their SQE courses. And the technical guidance for that was published last Friday. So we're already on it. We're getting lists from schools and helping to organise the transport. Thank you.
Thanks, that's reassuring, and you have to be congratulated for the adaptability of all the team, I think, and just dealing with this, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Councillor Devine?
Mine's more a comment, actually, if there are other questions.
Okay, Mr Summers? You're on.
Sorry, my mistake. Thank you. A question for you, Kelly, if it's appropriate. I'm concerned about the pressure on your teaching staff, and that's on a couple of fronts. First of all, if you do have children in the School of Key Workers, looking after them and also trying to manage a class online seems to me creating quite a lot of strain on your teachers. But secondly, and I stress anecdotally, I also hear that some parents are sending their kids into school, even though they really shouldn't be doing so, because they are not, or certainly not both of them, are key workers. I would guess that there would be a particular pressure on your head teachers. So I'm wondering if you could share some of your feeling in this respect, and whether this committee should be offering support in some way.
Thank you. I'll take the second point first, if that's okay. So when we were advised that not all children would attend school again in January, and were asked to provide in-school learning for the children of key workers and children who we identified as vulnerable, although I have to say that's not a term we've been using here, we didn't put in place what we did in the first lockdown, which was a centrally held application process, because this lockdown was not the same in terms of almost no one having to go to work. We realised that families were under more pressure. Our schools have managed the applications themselves, and they've done that in the full knowledge of their families and the pressures placed upon those families. What I didn't want was a family who were being forced to attend work by their employer being told that they couldn't get a place, and those conversations have been held with head teachers. And that was to stop a longer term problem of parents perhaps becoming unemployed or losing income because we couldn't support a place. So we have tried, as the government has asked, to keep numbers down to a minimum, whilst also recognising the context for each family. I too have heard anecdotal evidence of people placing their children in the hubs in our schools. Sorry, I shouldn't have used the word hubs. I shout at other people for doing that. In our schools, when they are perhaps at home or working from home. And I guess all I can say is we are taking people on their word when they're asking for the places. I think it's very difficult for our head teachers to police that, and we're not asking them to police it. We're just simply taking people on their word. On your first point about staff under pressure, I would say that the numbers who are attending schools are relatively small. We do have some schools with higher numbers. There's a couple of our primary schools with about a third of their population in, and that's in areas where we would expect it, where we know a number of key workers live, and so their children are attending school. Our head teachers have worked with staff in their schools, and staff tend to be working on rotas. I personally have had very few complaints, and complaints that we have had have tended to be from support staff, and these have been dealt with. There have been miscommunication or not understanding rotas. I think the bigger problem for us might be, depending on the guidance that comes out today, if we have a situation where children in our composite classes are split between learning in school and learning at home, and we're watching that very carefully. Thank you.
Thanks for that answer. And I do think you and your staff are to be commended for the way you've coped in these really very demanding circumstances. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, Mr. Summers, and thank you for saying so. Councillor Braze, is yours a question?
Well, thanks, convener. Yes, I suppose it is. But yes, I do. Yes, I would certainly like to congratulate all those involved in our schools for the magnificent way they've dealt with this huge upheaval. But I did have a question for Kelly. You said that we were collating all the positive comments. I wonder if there have been negative comments, and if there have, then there's a lot that we can learn from those negative comments too. Thanks.
Yes, of course, there are negative comments, and the thing I would say about the negative comments are where the head teacher receives these directly, they are dealt with straight away. I am unaware of anything that's not been dealt with, and we would use negative comments in our comms overall just to show how we've dealt with those, how our evaluative work and our quality assurance work has changed those negative comments into positive comments or provided the support to the families that they needed. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you. Any other questions before I jump on to comments then? No? No? Okay, Councillor Devine, carry on.
Yes, convener. I just wanted to say I've been in touch with some head teachers over the last week or so, and I must say I've been incredibly heartened by the whole attitude, the real excitement about the children possibly coming back next week. They're really keen for that to happen. These are primary schools I'm talking about. And they're saying that the staff are feeling so much more confident with digital teaching than the last time round, because it was all so new then. And there are more resources and they're just gaining in confidence. The schools I was speaking to actually had quite high numbers of children coming in, both key workers and the vulnerable children as well, which is very good. The engagement has been amazing. And I think where children haven't been engaging, then the head teachers have been encouraging these parents to bring their children into school, and it seems to have worked this time round. I think having every school open has really helped. I think there was a lot of people didn't want to send their children to another school the last time round. So the flexibility of the staff and the enthusiasm of the staff, I think, has been incredible. And thanks very much to Kelly and your team and to all the school leaders. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Councillor Devine said and basically saying that, Kelly, and we speak on a daily, if not weekly, every couple of days anyway, and you know, that's certainly the feedback I think all the councillors are getting on the schools, that it's been a magnificent achievement of what we've had to do through this pandemic. I have Councillor Speed. Yep.
Yep. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was just really to further add, I guess, my utmost respect and admiration to everyone for all their efforts, and to especially our parents and carers and children for all that they've had to contend with in this last year. I mean, I think, you know, 6 weeks of summer holidays can often feel like an absolute mammoth task, and that's with no restrictions in place. So, you know, given what's been asked, I think it is just enormous of what, you know, everyone has gone through. And we shouldn't underestimate the severe pressures that have been placed. But yeah, I think well done to all for getting this far. We're not quite there yet, but hopefully we're not too far away from returning to more normal times within school and education. And I think we're all just desperate to get there now. Thanks, convener.
Thank you. Okay, that seems to be all the comments done with. We have 4 recommendations to consider. It is recommended that the Children Learning Committee, number 1, reviews the Angus Council Remote Learning Guidance. Number 2, approves Angus Council's Remote Learning Guidance. Number 3, notes that Angus Council's Remote Learning Guidance outlines key expectations for the duration of the school closure period. And finally, number 4, requests that the Director of Education and Lifelong Learning undertakes an evaluation of remote learning and presents a report of the findings once schools have reopened. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 6 which is the temporary amended operating hours at Strathmore Centre. Another report by Catherine Lindsay. Catherine, can I ask you just to say a few words on this before we go into comments and questions, if that's okay?
Thank you very much. Councillors, you may find this report a tad familiar. You considered one almost identical at a committee toward the end of last year. So you will remember that Strathmore Avenue is our residential respite centre for children with multiple and complex needs. And this report is back before you today asking really for permission to continue our extended opening hours indefinitely, so that we can keep the need for that under review as the situation with the COVID-19 pandemic continues. So at the moment it is still working well. You will see in this report some feedback from people who have been using the service, which I hope is helpful for you to see. And there are a number of recommendations there that I'm asking you to consider today. Thank you.
Okay, as Catherine said, there are 4 recommendations. But before we go into that, do we have any questions? Councillor Speed?
Sorry, it's not a question.
Okay, any questions from anybody else? No. Okay, we'll go into comments there. Is that Councillor Proctor? Sorry, putting a thumb up. Yeah. Not finding the hand on the. Can you get your mute off? That's it.
How many, young people avail themselves of this facility? How many are we sort of roughly ballpark, Catherine, do we look after at the Strathmore Centre?
Thank you very much, Councillor Proctor. So at the moment we have 26 young people who are accessing the Strathmore Centre regularly for respite, but the extent to which they come to see us varies depending on their individual need and the support that they and their family ask for from us. Obviously, we would like to be able to provide more respite than we do, but we are fairly bound in terms of the physical kind of limitations of the building. And so what we have had to do in concert with the social workers involved in supporting those families and with the families themselves is make sure that we are targeting those families who have the greatest level of need at this time. So that's where we are in terms of volume at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whiteside, it's a new hand up. Is it a question or a comment?
Just a comment, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Right, if there's no other questions, we'll go back to Councillor Speed with the comments. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, who's going first? Councillor Whiteside?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Speed.
Yourself.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just I welcome this updated report and further commend the staff and families who are supported by the centre. It's no doubt that during these challenging times, many families will be absolutely exhausted due to the additional demands placed due to the pandemic. Many not only caring 24/7, but managing homeschooling on top of little or no sleep. Respite for the whole family is their sanctuary and saving grace. And I think, as Catherine touched on, I think the comments and the feedback from the families and the young people themselves are really quite powerful. And for those that don't have access to the papers, just to very quickly touch on some of the words, without this support, we would be lost. It truly is a lifesaver. I can't stress how important this was for us as a family. There's also praise for the staff and the wonderful work that they do, giving up their time and incurring extra risk in order to provide the services that families need. And then I think there's just a couple of those last lines there. We would not have made it without this support. And I think that is really quite powerful to hear, just the difference that this facility is making. And the final comment, respite is a great support for us as a family. It's the only support that we have. So it's crucial for us that we can have a caring break. So thank you, convener. I think it's just really important that we pause on those words and realise just the importance of this service. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Speed, for raising that again, which is in the report, as you've rightly said. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, convener. And probably it's already been said by Councillor Speed, but I just wanted to say that this service clearly provides a lifeline to the families who use it. So it's really welcome that the services have the flexibility to be able to adapt to the current situation, and it's really good to see this report coming forward again. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Councillor Speed, you still got a hand up, or you want to come back?
No,
No, old hand.
take it out, down, old hand.
Okay, if that's all the questions and comments, we'll go on to the 4 recommendations. It is recommended that the committee, number 1, notes the decision of the Director of Children, Families and Justice, using her delegated powers as Chief Social Work Officer, to continue to amend the operating hours and operate Strathmore Centre on a full-time basis from the 31st of January 2021 until the date of this committee, due to continued restrictions resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Number 2, approves the continued full-time operation of the Strathmore Centre from the date of this committee for an indefinite period. Number 3, requires the Director of Children, Families and Justice to keep the opening hours of the provision under review and to vary these in accordance with operational need. And finally, number 4, notes the feedback from some of the children and families who have accessed the service during the COVID-19 pandemic. Are these recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Well, that concludes the meeting for today. So thanks once again for coming along. And those of us who are on the staffing subcommittee, we can just stay put and we'll get straight on with that.